Muted.
H, you're muted.
Welcome, everybody. This is the Transform Fresno Outreach and Oversight Committee for June. This is the Outreach and Oversight Committee community-wide meeting. And so we want to welcome you to this very significant Zoom meeting. And we are going to kick this off. I want to just do a couple of little housekeeping things. Number one, our council president, Miguel Arias, who is chair of our Outreach and Oversight Committee, was unable to join us tonight. And so he asked me if I would stand in his place, which I am willing to do. And so I will be your tour guide tonight. And we will be moving through our items on our agenda. If you haven't seen our agenda, tonight we're going to be looking at a project highlight, and then we're going to be discussing transformative plans and giving an update on our transformative plans. So tonight as we start, let me just, I feel like we ought to start with a word of prayer. Pastor B.T. Lewis, preach prayer, die on a moment's notice. We normally meet at Westside Church of God, and he does such a great job in setting the tone. So if you would do that this evening, that would be great. Pastor Lewis.
Eternal God, our Creator, we come this evening grateful for another day of life. We thank you, Master, for the gift of being your children. God, we pray for this meeting. We pray for our plans. God, we pray for a rejuvenation of our community. God, so we ask that you would bless every plan that we have. God, we pray that you would bless every project and every person on this call in the respective way that they are in need. In Jesus' name, be our strength tonight, our refuge, and our hiding place. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. I'm really grateful tonight in light of the things that are happening in our community. I can't tell you how many times that I've thought of you who are on this call, most of whom I know, you who are on the Outreach and Oversight Committee and members of the community who are so committed to this process, because I feel like in many ways the conversation and the travail that we're going through as a nation is around old narratives that need to be addressed. And I feel like TCC and Transform Fresno has given us that have been involved with it in Fresno practice in addressing some of these issues. So I've just found myself being very grateful for you all tonight. So with that, let me just go to our project highlight. Tonight, each of our community meetings, what we do is we highlight a project. In this case, we're going to be highlighting projects 15, 16, and 17. And to do that, we have with us tonight Keith Berthold, who is the Executive Director, CEO of Fresno Metro Ministry, and Pastor DJ Kreiner, who is the Senior Pastor at St. Rest Baptist Church. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Keith and Pastor, and please give us your project highlight tonight.
Thank you. Pastor's going to lead off.
All right. So thank you, Keith. So to H and to each of you on the call, especially to Pastor Lewis, who serves as such a key leader in our community in West Fresno. Thank you so much for giving us this awesome opportunity to make this presentation to each of you, just to kind of give you a highlight of what I believe is quite possibly one of the most exciting partnerships and one of the most exciting opportunities Fresno has seen or will see in a while. Let me preface this by starting here, H. It was 2016, the same year that Black Lives Matter movement hopped on Sean Blackstone and began to kind of walk down that street that I was sent to Dallas. And in Dallas, I turned on the television one day watching ESPN, and I was shocked because my basketball team, the Golden State Warriors, who had just previously won their championship, had just lost their championship to the horrible, horrible enemy called LeBron James. had already made it and capitalized to become the greatest basketball team in the history, but failed to win the championship, had already made significant achievements, but just needed someone else to put them over the edge. And along came the tarantula himself, Kevin Durant, who signed on with the Golden State Warriors. And from there, they made history. Pastor Lewis knows what happened after that, because Cleveland never recovered. James was never king, and LeBron ended up moving to Los Angeles. That partnership, 2016, many thought was the greatest partnership. But I'm bringing you, quite possibly, in my opinion, a greater partnership that would take not just St. Rest, not just Fresno Metro, but in my opinion, the city of Fresno to greater heights than we've ever imagined us being in. I think a championship for the city of Fresno is not out of the question when this partnership happens. Two, in my opinion, great ministries, great organizations are coming together for the sake of making sure that a community that has never, in our opinion, the opportunities to have such amazing food, such amazing abilities to host, such amazing abilities to see an entire community transform and change, has that opportunity because of the benefit of having two organizations go of pride and ideas and come together to put together an awesome project that we will, in our opinion, will produce amazing results. So my brothers and my sisters, it is my honor to introduce this amazing partnership, the St. Rest Plus, St. Rest and the Food to Share Hub partnership, which is Fresno Metro Ministries that has already done an amazing job since 1970 of producing and showing results, and the St. Rest Baptist Church that has done an awesome job since 1944 of producing and saving souls. And when you put the product tangibly and the product spiritually together, I guarantee you, man, the Lakers, the Warriors, or the Sacramento Kings will never come close to touching this amazing partnership. So with that, I'll turn it over to my brother Keith. And Keith, take us a little bit further, and I'll jump back in a minute.
Thank you so much, Pastor. And if you could advance the slide, Courtney. So first of all, we are so grateful to be part of this process and grateful to TCC and all the different reviews we've had. And we've had some reviews at the state, and we're moving this project forward. But one of the reasons we're doing it are these two maps. The city of Fresno grew away from its core after World War II. And the blue in this map on the left is the city in 1945. And the red is what's happened since 1945 in terms of our suburbanization. And the map on the right shows the concentrated poverty, the poverty in red that's over 40%. And that's what we've left behind. And that's what we're really wanting to address as community developers and people of faith. So you can advance the slide, please. Here's the greatest irony and injury, and this is one of the reasons we created Food to Share at Fresno Metro Ministry. Fresno, in the heart of the richest food-producing region in the world, is the third highest food hardship metropolitan area in the United States. Unbelievable. So there's got to be some disconnect here, some kind of problem that allows us to be so close to all this great food and have this kind of hardship. If you could advance it, Courtney. And Calavirus screen is a little blurry there, but that kind of shows the San Joaquin Valley. The red and the orange are high concentrated poverty with pollution burden, and it just kind of defines our valley, which is another tragedy. If you can advance a little further. And this is kind of a blurry version of Fresno, but you can see that Central and South Fresno have some of the highest pollution and poverty burden. We need Central and South Fresno to be green. Green is low poverty and low pollution burden. So we want to change these colors, right? Keep going, please. The next slide is health burdens and health issues. Keep going, please. This is kind of a regional development pattern. I'll just go past it. We kind of know what's happening out in Clovis and up in Madera, and that's also part of the problem, but we'll come back to that some other time. And I guess the idea is just to summarize, we're committed. Fresno Metro Ministries' mission and vision is learning, connecting, and engaging to achieve healthy people and healthy places. And what we're up against together with TCC and Southwest Fresno and Central Fresno and Southeast is high concentrated poverty, high chronic disease, high pollution burden, all above the national average. And we think we've got the kind of project that if it grows through healthy food and the kind of relationships that are involved, we can actually be able to address some of these things. So if you could advance it again, please. So, Pastor, you did a great introduction. Is there anything else you want to say about your mission and vision and your values? We feel like we've got this synergy between St. Rest and Metro that we're really plumbing now over 3 years of being in partnership on our food programs.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Keith. St. Rose Baptist Church, again, has set in the West Fresno community on this corner, on this particular corner that we're on now since 1978. 1977, excuse me, but has existed as far as an organization, church, since 1944. And since the idea of planting and building a church by Pastor White back in 1944, the whole idea was to make sure that not only do we build spiritual lives and build up the morals and the ethics of the community that we're surrounded with on the inside, but also doing what we can to radically transform the outside of the church. And for a long time, I think a lot of people just simply thought that that meant the outside building. But the reality is that the church is supposed to be a beacon light in the midst of fog as a ship trying to find its way to a dock, but can't because of the environment that's around it. And the lighthouse's job is to guide them in. Then our belief system now is that the job of the St. Rest Church is to make sure that we show a community that may have feel like they've been in darkness forever, that there are opportunities to see the light. And if that means transforming a community around it, then that's our job. Our vision and our mission all say that exact same thing. Is the purpose and the mission of the St. Rest Baptist Church is to radically transform a community within a community by way of evangelism, mission work, and arts. And that is our responsibility. As a result of that, we have placed our values in people more than our values in particular buildings. But we've all discovered that in order to build the lives of people, we have to find programs that are absent in the community that would help build those lives in the community. And so one of the main key programs that we've started since I became the pastor is our food distribution ministry, because we discovered that we were sitting in a food desert. And though there are members of our community that can possibly drive or catch the bus to food distribution centers outside of this area, we also discovered that a lot of elders are unable to hop on a bus or even to drive in a car. So we decided to do that on our own. We started with simply just doing an outdoor distribution in our parking lot, but found that those numbers just literally grew faster than our parking lot was able to cover. But the mission didn't stop. So part of our story as a church is to make sure that before the book closes on St. Rest Church, there's a happy ending. And that happy ending only happens when we're able to provide not just lives, but also programs to help build those lives. And that's what we're trying to do here at St. Rest Church.
That's great. And I'll just say that Metro has two primary program areas. One comes under the heading of Food to Share, which we're going to explain to you. The other is the Better Blackstone program in Central Fresno, trying to do corridor revitalization and build new businesses, jobs, and housing for people in Central Fresno. Both of them at the core are about helping produce healthy people and healthy places. Go ahead and advance the slide, please. So when I got to the Metro Ministry, I'd been with the city for 8 years as the assistant planning director and interim planning director and a whole bunch of other titles. When I came in 2014, after 8 years there, I really wanted to implement a healthy communities element of the general plan, and one that dealt with our neighborhoods and neighborhood revitalization and community revitalization. My board challenged me and Chanel Reese-Mendez, who's going to speak in just a minute. They said, okay, our mission is learning, connecting, and engaging to achieve healthy people in healthy places. Can you please find a way to elevate healthy food to actually produce health? And I scratched my head for a while. And then honestly, I have to admit ignorance. I did not know how much food we wasted that was good food that we buried in landfills every year. And when I discovered that, it was like some light bulb went off. I know the way to really do this is, why not stop wasting food and be good stewards of this food and get it to people who need to eat it, and also help them with cooking classes and nutrition education so they can prevent hypertension, they can prevent diabetes and things like that. So when I found about a food waste in 2014, the Wall Street Journal published an article that said we wasted $165 billion of edible food in the United States in 2014. It's only gotten worse. We've buried tons of food, millions of tons. In Fresno County, we're burying over 150,000 tons of edible food. So there's just this thing about trying to be good stewards and then use that stewardship of recovering this food to get it to people who need it. And we also have this environmental benefit in addition to the direct chronic disease prevention. And that is, for every pound of food that we're able to rescue and get to a disadvantaged community member, underserved community member that will consume it, we actually reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 2.2 pounds. So we have this environmental health, climate change aspect, and then the direct health. So I'd really like to introduce Chanel Rees-Mendez, who's the operating director of this. And she and I work very closely every day on Food to Share, and let her explain what Food to Share is, because that's the basis for this project as an operation. And we're just basically expanding this platform through the St. Res Food to Share Hub right there on Elm and Chester Riggins. Chanel? Are you there, Chanel?
Yeah. Hey, everyone,
good.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, speak up. I think you can advance the slide. You can advance the slide, Courtney. Thank you.
We can
Hey,
hear
Courtney,
you, Chanel.
everyone, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Hi, everyone. This is Chanel, Metro Deputy Director, and one of the things that I do is actually oversee the Food to Share program and work very closely with Keith and the rest of our team, and of course, Pastor Kreiner. Thank you so much for that amazing intro. You got me pumped up about our team. Really excited. I hope everyone else is. So what we're looking at here is a slide of what Metro calls our pathway to health and resilience. It's really, Food to Share is our umbrella for our community food system work. And our efforts to increase access in disadvantaged neighborhoods, it ranges from everything from advocacy for safety net programs like CalFresh outreach and enrollment, to building community gardens, and also to the big part of our program, which is the food recovery and distribution portion of Food to Share and nutrition education. And we feel like each of these little dots on the pathway is just critical to health and resilience for Fresno. Go to the next slide. So at a higher level, this is not our grassroots stuff, but at a higher level, what we work on also is we coordinate the Fresno Food Security Network. And then here we bring together dozens of local organizations quarterly, and we strategize on creating collaborative and sustainable food access programs for our region. Go to the next slide, Courtney. And at the, as I mentioned, at the grassroots level, some of our work includes advocacy for safety net resources, providing hands-on CalFresh application enrollment and renewals. Every year, we coordinate Hunger Action Day, where we get dozens of residents together, and we have them tell their stories, from their perspective about their experiences with food insecurity, and we advocate for different resources to make sure that that money comes back, to the valley, back to Fresno. And in addition to that, we've also led the CalFresh Task Force for the county for about 15 years now. And this is a countywide consortium of food access advocates and service providers where we create best practices for Fresno. Next slide. Okay. So another way that Food to Share helps create access to healthy food is by providing technical assistance to food distribution partners in food desert neighborhoods. So far, we've provided over 1.5 million pounds of nutritious food at 6 monthly distributions. And there we've held 76 different cooking demonstrations, and we provided opportunities for over 2,000 residents over the last few years. Next slide. Okay. So the most significant part of our program, especially for this, for Project 17 for TCC, it's our food recovery and distribution mechanism that we do in disadvantaged communities. Our goal is really to keep nutritious food out of the landfill and get it to families in need. And one of our biggest partnerships is with Fresno Unified School District, where we recover from 28 of their schools regularly, and we're doing about 60,000 pounds a month just from the 28 schools. So just in the past 3.5 years of recovering, we've done over 1.3 million from the schools, nearly 700,000 pounds of recovered food from retail stores and private donors like farmers and transporters and things. And we get this food out through our food network, which is 49 organizations of CBOs, churches, Boys and Girls Clubs, senior centers, through a number of organizations who already have existing feeding programs. And St. Res, of course, was one of our very first churches to come on, and they've been there since the beginning of Food to Share. So we're really proud of that partnership. Next slide, Courtney. So another way that we recover food is we have a glean team. So our team actually goes out to residents' homes and small orchards, and we actually pick fresh fruits and vegetables that would end up in the landfill, and we get that to families in need. So you can see from this slide here, we've done over 90,000 pounds of food recovered just from Fresno backyards. Next slide. And then, of course, we have our community gardens and urban farms. And as you know, we have 3 community gardens that we manage for the city, where we reach almost 200 families that grow food for their neighbors and their communities. And then, of course, a big shout out and thank you to TCC, our newest community garden and permaculture farm incubator, in what we're calling Yoville, is in Southwest Fresno. Next slide. So cooking matters. So we know that we can bring in tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, even millions of pounds of food into neighborhoods, and we can bring fresh fruits and vegetables, but it's not really going to change health if they don't know what to do with it. So we do these 6-week free courses called Cooking Matters. It teaches everything from knife skills to basic things like reading the back of labels, how to shop on a budget, and we bring families together. And it's every week for 6 weeks. They come together for 2 hours. The first half hour, we do a nutrition and education portion, and then we actually break bread together. We cook a meal together, and we teach simple things like, we don't demonize any food, but we say, you know, maybe sometimes once a week, twice a week, maybe we take out the beef for turkey meat, and we teach them how to cook healthy recipes for their family. And then their homework, they get to take home a bag of groceries, and then they try it with their families, and they need to come back the next week, and then they report on that to us of, you know, how it went. So far, we've done 21 cohorts with over 236 residents, and we're just over 73% graduation rate, and about 80% of those graduates, they report that they have more confidence to shop on a budget and more confidence to cook with fruits and vegetables. Next slide, Courtney. So I know that was a mouthful, that was a lot. We're doing a ton of work with Food to Share, and so this is just a recap of the food that we've recovered just in the 3.5 years. So over 1.5 million through food distributions, over 1.3 million just from the schools. And remember, that's only 28 schools we're recovering from. And Keith, in just a minute, we'll talk about our Fresno Unified Partnership. We're soon going to be going to all 94 schools with food service, so it's going to be a lot more pounds than that. And then almost 700,000 pounds of direct recoveries from farmers markets, from packers, warehouses, and then, as I just said, the over 90,000 pounds of fruits and vegetables, that were gleaned. And an exciting part of this for us, we always say that when we're trying to get into new schools and we're selling this, that it's a twofer. Not only are we feeding people and getting the food to where it needs to go, but it also has an environmental impact. So with this over 3.5 million pounds of recovered food, that actually prevented over 7.9 million pounds of greenhouse gases from being emitted into our environment. Next slide. And then this slide here is just some examples of the amazing ways that we do our work in the community to reduce food insecurity. A couple of these pictures are old because now this is pre-COVID era. Now all these pictures have people 6 feet apart and with masks on.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay. Next slide.
So thank you, Chanel. Thank you very, very much. We're very grateful that the school district realized that they were wasting food. And quite frankly, this is one of those things where I think, they were ashamed of it and didn't know what to do about it because of USDA regulations, a number of things. And so by coming in with Food to Share and being able to work with Bob Nelson and getting his encouragement to go to all of the schools in the district, we have the potential just in Fresno Unified to be recovering and redistributing over 2 million pounds a year just from Fresno Unified. And there's another 100 schools in the Fresno Clovis metropolitan area, Sangre Unified, and et cetera, et cetera. So this, by being able to situate our base platform at the St. Rest campus and this new St. Rest Food to Share hub, we now will have storage capabilities and logistic capabilities we never had before. So we actually can take on all these schools in the whole metropolitan area and then maybe even grow even bigger than that. So the school district is an important source of stewardship for this food, and Fresno Unified has recognized that and is encouraging us to get to all their schools. You can go change the slide. So these are just some pictures of the kind of food we get from schools. I mean, a lot of it's separately packaged vegetables and fruits, and there's hot meals that go to seniors that love it. The hot meals the kids don't like, the seniors love, that kind of stuff. Go ahead and change it. This is the distribution network that we have about 49 green dots now, or little green stars, and we have another 50 to 60 we're looking at. So we feel like as we ramp up the St. Rest Food to Share Hub over the next 3 to 4 years, we'll be at 70 or 80 distribution points, and we're now at close to 50 with 49. So kind of gives you an idea, and a lot of clustering in 93706. So we have a lot of opportunities to, get and distribute food in the 93706 zip code. Go ahead and advance it, please. So I'm going to pass this over to Pastor. This building is an 85-year-old building, and it's creating this opportunity for multiple benefits. And the idea is not only does it help with the St. Rest campus, but it really helps revitalize Elm Avenue. This becomes an anchor project for the revitalization of Elm Avenue. And I am just so absolutely excited about the prospect of creating an activity center that on the axis of Chester Riggins and Elm Avenue. Pastor, you want to flip the slide, and Pastor? You're muted, Pastor.
That's the first time you can ever mute a Black pastor. All right, so TCC, what it does, it literally taps into decades of community service. And for those that are on our call, you're not able to see the slide, but this slide is just a briefing of kind of what I'm going to talk about in the next few slides. This TCC ability really helps take the projects, the overall objectives that we have been trying to complete for 75 years of St. Rest and for the 50 years with Fresno Metro to another level, especially as we began to look at how to revitalize Southwest Fresno. You can tap on that next slide, please. I'll just do a little bit of reading and summarizing as much as I can. But this amazing partnership is created by the St. Rest Baptist Church and Fresno Metro Ministry, which is the founder and operator of Food to Share. It will rehabilitate, improve, and transform the existing 6,700 square foot warehouse building on St. Rest's campus, right along that Elm Avenue for capacity, as well as community and citywide healthy food hubs. Allow me to say real quick as I move forward, that building used to be a Farmer John's slaughterhouse. It used to be a place where they would bring, of course, pigs and meat into in order to distribute out. And we're literally looking at taking that building that has been a landmark in Southwest Fresno, where it used to have pigs on the side of it, and using it to revitalize this community when it comes to healthy food. It will also serve as a community kitchen, right? Designed to allow us to teach cooking skills and nutrition education classes for parents and children, using a nationally recognized Cooking Matter curriculum, kind of stuff that has already been stated. It will support local food trucks and catering entrepreneurs from the community. We've already had a couple of food trucks that are within that plaza, which is right north of the distribution center as we speak. And this gives us an opportunity to not only host them, but also to give them opportunities to make their name even more known. It will improve and beautify the 13,600 square foot of parcel land area surrounding the Healthy Food Hub building, with hardscapes for vehicle and pedestrian access, and with attractive landscapes and planting that reduce heat island effect. As you know, South Fresno is already hot, and whenever you're standing on that particular ground of that distribution area, it gets even hotter. So just imagine beautifying that area as you walk into that or drive into the Elm corridor. If you can go to the next slide, that'd be terrific. Also, the community benefits that it has. The St. Rest and the Food to Share partnership will be a functional operating assess for uplifting the Southwest Fresno community, a community dramatically and urgently in need of investment in more effectively addressing severe disparities related to chronic disease. As you know, Southwest Fresno has a 20-year life expectancy gap between South and North, but this project will clearly benefit Southwest Fresno children, youth, and families by adding year-round healthy food access, nutritional classes, and cooking skill classes to regular community events and activities planned for larger St. Rest campus activities and events, exercise, educational programs that we're doing in our park area. So you're looking at almost a combined partnership that would actually work not just for the distribution center, but the campus that we're sitting in. It will also be a resource for all Southwest Fresno churches and community-based organizations serving and seeking to work together to improve the social, economic, and environmental determinants of health of all residents in a very strategic and valuable community. This project right here will increase employment and community members by St. Rest and Fresno Metro Ministries. If you would hit the next slide, that'd be terrific too. But the model for regional benefits. The project provides a regional model for ensuring benefits that measurably reach the most vulnerable residents and that the residents served are engaged as peer partners in a community advisory committee. What that literally means in a nutshell is that the goal, right, Keith, is to bring our community members so that they have a well-staked investment on what's going on, not simply to tell the community what they need, but to take a listen to the community. And especially in where we are right now, it seems like we need to do a little bit more listening than speaking and telling people what they need. And this community needs to have a voice, so they need to speak. The last bullet point, the project provides a regional model for linking adaptive reuse as an anchoring project for urban infill along a long neglected corridor, helping implement plans and facilities for community revitalization, economic opportunity, business formation, new jobs, and prospects for a healthier in the inner city. The goal is to serve literally as a catalyst for restoration and for change. We could go to the next slide. And with this, I turn it back over to Keith. Keith, you want to take it from here?
Thank you so much. And I just want to emphasize, this is the beginning with the St. Rest Campus Master Plan as a catalyst for Elm Avenue, this facility. We've got all kinds of other plans. We feel like we're going to have the opportunity to build an activity center that can help revitalize all kinds of opportunities here for Southwest Fresno. I can do this really fast. We meet all of the TCC program objectives. Greenhouse gas reduction. You can flip the slide, Courtney, please. We meet we're increasing healthy food. We're meeting all TCC objectives. We made sure that we did, and the state has already reviewed this. They've agreed to that. So maybe just summarizing, we are in the process of evaluating. Let me back up for one moment. We reviewed this with a subcommittee of local TCC and Transform Fresno with the entire board. And then we moved that on to the SGC with the just fine facilitation of Courtney and H and others at the city. And they turned it around very quickly, and they've given us a punch list. And we are going through getting contractor estimates for every single improvement and change of this building. So we're running lots of people through the building, and the deacons and the people at the church are up early, and we're meeting people at the warehouse. We're hoping to resubmit back to the state with all of our answers to their questions. They were very, very positive about us doing this. They just needed a lot of details that we hadn't supplied in the original application. We're getting those together. We hope to turn it back to them by July 15th and get it back so that we can actually go to City Council, have this approved on August 20th, and be off to the races building this thing out and beginning these operations that will benefit the community and frankly benefit all of Fresno, because we'll be using this as a distribution point and a gathering point for a lot of food. So I guess next slide. And we talked about the importance of community engagement. We're absolutely committed to community engagement and community involvement in all the programming of this facility. And the next slide. I guess that's just where we're at right now with what we're doing. Those were the budgets that were consistent with what was approved before. So we're all consistent with all that. And finally, I think it's just questions, right? So I guess I'm sorry we took so much time, and we're really grateful to tell this story. We feel like this is a catalytic project, and that if we can connect our garden, which Chris is going to talk about in just a minute, and a number of other activities along Elm Avenue, we have something we believe that can really be a positive example of what the TCC committee and everything that you guys have done is about for Southwest Fresno. So thank you very much, and any questions we're happy to answer.
Thank you, Keith. Thank you, Pastor Kreiner. Thank you, Chantel. We're going to have, just to give you a little orientation, we're going to have 3 opportunities for questions. One will be now. That will be questions that relate to this project and the project highlight that was just presented. Thank you very much for that great and inspiring highlight. Then after our transformative plans update, we'll have another opportunity for questions and answers. And then hopefully at the end of our meeting before 7:30, we'll have an opportunity for any public comment. So That's just, and then one other little piece of housekeeping. *9 is what you want to hit to raise your hand if you have any questions. So any questions now that you have that you'd like to, Courtney?
Let's hear from one more speaker for Project 15, Chris De Leon. He's also from Fresno Metro Ministry.
Oh, excuse me. I'm
And
sorry,
he's gonna
Chris.
present on that.
And you've got his
Awesome.
presentation, right, Courtney?
I do.
Good.
Great, perfect.
All right, yeah, so I'll just introduce myself real quick. My name is Chris De Leon. I'm the Community Gardens Manager with Fresno Metro Ministry. And today I'm going to be presenting on Project 15, which is the Community Orchard. So as soon as we get that up.
Chris, maybe while we're waiting for the slide to come up, maybe you could just talk about the difference between the Community Orchard and the other major TCC project, Transform Fresno project that you're working on.
Yeah. So that was a little bit a part of what I had ready, but the Community Orchard is a bit of an add-on to it. So Courtney, can you go to the next slide, please? So this project number 15, the Community Orchard, is going to be at the same location that project number 12, which is the Yosemite Village Permaculture Community Garden and Urban Farm Incubator. So they're going to be at the same place. We were just combining both of those projects together onto the one spot. So can you go to the next slide, please? So this project is project number 12 was behind or is behind California and Fruit, behind the Yosemite Village apartment. It's on housing authority property. And we were using it before. So if you can go to the next slide. Project number 12 included a community garden here. So you can see the progress to create a community, the roads, the pathways there. Residents always like residents.
Chris, you're breaking up just a bit. I don't know if it's a situation with your speaker or proximity to your speaker, but you're breaking up just a bit.
Give me 1 second. Is that better? Is that better?
Yes, that's better.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so we have a community garden in the front. And then in this bottom part, we have urban farm incubator plots. So these plots are to train 3 farmers, so they each get 1 plot. And we will train farmers, new farmers are interested in developing their own farm organizations or businesses. We're going to train them on business and marketing and urban farming and how to really grow food in ground, right? Not using tilling or pesticides, and really allowing residents to be involved in food production. And all right, can you go to the next slide, please? And so that was what we had for project number 12. Now we're using this new project number 15 to add on to this project and to increase how much we have available for residents. So the community orchard that we're adding on is going to be a 120 tree community orchard that is going to be available to the community. And we're going to be growing animals in between rows. Agriculture works to incorporate many different kinds of plants together so that you can best utilize the space, and then you can also limit harmful pesticides and tilling. Can you go to the next slide, please? So something that we're going to do to help keep all of the energy, capture lots of the air, and they're going to store it in their branches. And typically, you prune them back to really make lots of fruit grow. And so we're going to be keeping all of those prunings, and we're going to be implementing something called Hugelkultur. And with that, we're going to be creating raised beds out of it. So we're going to dig into the ground, and then we're going to bury the branches and all the prunings, put a little bit of a mulch and green prunings from the garden as well, and then some compost. And we'll be able to grow directly in that as well to create more garden spaces for community members to grow their own food. Okay, next slide. So the location of the community orchard is going to be on the bottom of the property. So as you can see, that large plot on the top was a farm incubator. This area that we had down here, we didn't really have plants for before, so we just had native plants around there. But this will really allow us to take advantage of that property and produce as much food as we can for Southwest Fresno residents. We're also going to be extending a swale on the left-hand side of the property to capture more rainwater so that we can use that rainwater to also water the orchards as well. Okay, next slide. The Hugelkultur planting areas where we're going to be growing using the prunings and stuff from trees are going to go on the bottom of where the community garden currently is. So right now, we only have funding for the community garden to be around this circle, the pie there. But this will allow us to provide 48 new planting spaces for Southwest Fresno residents. So what we're doing right now is we're holding off on opening enrollment for community garden planting areas. So we're limiting it to only 93706 residents until we make sure that we conduct outreach to as many 93706 residents as we can on how to get involved in this project and how to get their own garden plots. So the funds are also going to include some funding to grow some plants as well for those plots. And with this funding, we're also going to be installing a pergola with solar panels on it so that we can host workshops and create shaded spaces for community members. So this is like right in the middle of the sun, and there isn't any spaces for residents to go and stand under the sun in. Or if we want to have any classes on water conservation or soil health, or even on how to manage a community orchard, we can have those classes here, both for the farmers that we're training and for community members. Okay, next slide. And then other features that we plan on getting with this project is tables and benches for residents to sit in and really utilize the new green space that's in their area, as well as educational signage on like what is going on in the garden, why we're using drip irrigation, and like how the compost pile is working and things like that. Like, so to really explain what's going on the site. And then we're doing outreach for this project through the efforts that we're already doing through project number 12. So here are some of our garden leadership team members. So there's 6 from the Yosemite Village apartment that are really trying to get others engaged, and they've been a big part in getting other residents involved in the project. And they kind of work with me and with other volunteers to create an area that they find safe and enjoyable, and that it'll last for a long time, so that it's not just like like it'll happen really quickly and then not be sustainable. So they're constantly involved in the development of the garden and also in like what new things they would like to see. So that's pretty much it for our project. Yeah.
Thank you, Chris. So now is the time for questions related to this project. Yes, Destiny?
I was just giving them a round of applause.
Oh, sorry. Great. Courtney, are you going to manage the questions? Obviously, I need help.
Yes, so go ahead and raise your hand if you have a question, if you're on Zoom, and if you're on the phone lines, press *9. And we'll take you in the order that you raised your hand, and I will let you know when you are unmuted by calling out your name or phone number. Does anybody have any questions or comments for these speakers?
Courtney, there is one person with their hand up.
Okay, looking for that person. I don't see them.
Go ahead now.
I just wanted to ask if it would be helpful, at least it would be helpful for me, since these meetings are not our usual type of meetings, if there were some notes being kept so that they could be shared.
Yes, so there are no notes, but there is a recording that's being recorded by CMAC, so you can watch it later. That video will be posted online and can be sent. A link can be sent to whoever wants to watch that. This is also being broadcasted on Facebook Live as well.
Okay, so that she needs more than that. So is it possible for the slides that were presented to be provided to Sister Curry?
Yes. So Mrs. Curry, I can print out the slide deck for you, and I can get those over to you, that information.
That would be helpful. I just don't want to be an extra burden to ask you to do things that you know.
No, that's perfectly all right. I'd love to do that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
There's two members of the public with their hands up. I'm going to get them.
Okay. We're going to hear from Brandy News Villegas. So I'm going to unmute you.
Thanks. I wanted to piggyback on the last one. Is it possible to have those slides posted somewhere so that we can share it and be able to reference that? The video is great. I see it on the City of Fresno one as well as on Zoom, and I did want to let you guys know that those are great presentations, and they're very exciting. The idea of all of it is amazing. Being able to, I know a lot of people have been thinking about things like having a food garden so this orchard is amazing. So wanted to see if there is a way that we can have the slides available online to be able to share and to be able to reference.
Yes, Brandy, those slides are currently posted on our Transform Fresno website. And so you can click on the main page where you got the Zoom link, and you should be able to click on the slide decks as well to open those up. Okay, Sabrina, Kelly, I see that your hand is raised. Go ahead. You should be able to talk now.
Yeah, I just want to say that I'm so inspired by this project, both as a Fresno Metro board member, but also as a former member of St. Rest Church under Pastor Riggins. I remember him talking about that vacant building for many, many years. So glad to see that. And also glad to see that there is this mitigation effort to reduce the pollution burden and also the food insecurity burden for West Fresno's residents who live along the Elm corridor. And my question has to do with a sustainability piece, and wondering if you all have thought about the programming is great and food recovery is great, but I'm wondering if you thought about advocacy for further food waste policies, specifically in the Southwest Fresno footprint, like waste bans, particularly around livestock or other farm waste, and just wanted to get your thoughts about any plans to have a policy advocacy piece to keep food out of local landfills.
About that, but we're also very close to Cal Recycle. And just so you know, our first grant was from Cal Recycle, and they helped us with our initial infrastructure to launch the Food to Share program. And they actually invited us several years ago to give input into a new law called Senate Bill 1383. And we did. And in 2022, there'll be a requirement that big food wasters with edible food can't throw it away anymore. They have to contract somehow with local community-based organizations that do exactly what we're doing. Take that edible food before it's gone to the landfill and get it to people who need it. And so we're hoping, in terms of sustainability, that the laws of California are pretty rigorous. So they're gonna actually deal with a lot of the issues you raised, Sabrina, which are excellent. But we're also hoping that these laws will transform into a business model for this type of food recovery and redistribution and community education in terms of nutrition and cooking skills. So we're looking at long-term sustainability having a lot to do with the franchise fees and other things. And then also, we think a couple of years from now, we'll be able to verify through some scientific studies and research that the work we're doing with St. Rest and others actually is preventing disease. It's lowering hypertension and the rates of diabetes in people. And we're hoping then that we should have the healthcare system be investing in these kind of prevention-oriented activities. So sustainability long-term to us has a lot to do with the recycling system in the state of California, the laws that are being promulgated right now, and with us being more integrated into the healthcare system for prevention-oriented spending.
Great. We have another significant presentation coming right up. So let's take one more question if we have one.
For some reason, I couldn't raise my hand, but I do have a question. In the presentation, you talked about creating employment opportunities for residents. Do you know, just the estimated guess, how many jobs that you think you will be providing between St. Res and Fresno Metro Ministry, new jobs?
4 years of operational funds, there should be 6 or 7 new positions somewhere in that neighborhood. But
okay.
But we're thinking bigger than that longer term.
Yeah.
We'd really like to marry this project with a cooperative grocery and a system of stakeholders, workers and producers as equal members in some kind of cooperative in Southwest Fresno. So we're hoping this evolves into the kind of activity center and larger reach that hopefully hundreds of people get jobs over the next 5 to 10 years.
So another question to that, a follow-up question, with the activity center, is it going to be like you're going to have computers in there, you're going to have tutors in there, that type of resources to the community?
You know what, I think St. Rest has already got some plans for that on their campus, and Pastor can speak to that. When I talk about an activity center, I'm really thinking about markets and offices and different kinds of businesses all grouping together around that portion of Elm Avenue and creating this activity at such a level that other people want to invest and renew Elm Avenue.
Got it. I also just want to say, as a resident of Southwest Fresno, a person who was born and raised, this is a very exciting project coming to Southwest Fresno. It was something that was needed, and I am just happy to see the renovation to the old Farmer John's Market and see some beautification on that corner. So congratulations.
We are so grateful to work with you and so grateful for this opportunity. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Pastor. Thank you. Thank you, Keith. Thank you, Chris and Chanel. We're grateful for your excellent presentation. We're inspired, and we're going to move on now to our second item of business tonight, and that is a transformative plans update. So bless you all, and we understand if you need to leave our call. We're going to, the transformative plans are, of course, one of the hallmarks of TCC that helps make sure that this project is transformative, is making a difference, is well connected to the community, and having significant impacts going forward. So I'm going to turn it over to Courtney Espinoza, who's going to set this up.
Thanks, H. So I just wanted to give everybody a little update about the transformative plans, kind of where we are to date. So speaking about the community engagement plan specifically, the RFQs for 6 different components of the community engagement plan were published, and we had 12 responding agencies. Those interviews took place, and the panel chose 3 different organizations for 6 components of that community engagement plan. We also included a couple of outreach and oversight committee members on the interview panel, so we could make a good decision. And you'll be hearing from those tonight. So on the workforce development plan, we've contracted with Fresno Regional Workforce Development Board to oversee the West Fresno Advanced Technology Training Program. And they have started that program and are currently recruiting for trainees. This program was discussed at the last Transform Fresno community meeting in March. They gave a brief overview about that. And we will be sending out an informational flyer shortly to give everyone information on how to become a part of that program. The other one, we also submitted a proposal for the Voice Gladiator program that will be administered by the State Center Community College District. That has been submitted to SGC for approval with revisions that the state wanted made to that proposal, and we're waiting for their final approval. So once that's approved, we will enter into a sub-agreement with State Center Community College, and the program will get started from there. So you also heard about that program in detail at the last community meeting in March. Lastly, for the displacement avoidance plan, there are several components for this plan. The business development workshops is one component and will be conducted. Those workshops will be conducted at least 3 times a year for businesses in the project area to inform the owners how to grow their business and what resources are available for them. The first meeting originally was scheduled for April, however, that had to be canceled due to the pandemic. And the meeting has been rescheduled to a webinar format that will be June 17th. The flyer for that event is also posted on the Transform Fresno website, and you should have received an email if you're a part of our listserv for that, for more information on how to be a part of that webinar. For first-time home ownership workshops, they are planned to be held twice per year for the next 4 years. The first one, again, was originally planned for May, but had to be canceled. So future workshops are in the planning stages. And once we get that confirmed, we will send out information on how people can be a part of those homebuyer education and financial literacy workshops. For those that are interested in purchasing a home for the first time, that will give you good information for that. We're also working with the Central Valley Business Diversity Group to begin some one-on-one technical assistance for businesses located specifically within the project area. And we will be sending out more information on that resource as well very soon as we get the final logistics figured out for that. Last but not least, the displacement avoidance plan consultant, the Thrivance project, was hired and has been working on the project since April. You had a short introduction of Thrivance at our last community meeting where Dr. Destiny Thomas gave a little bit of information about herself. She's going to go into the project a little bit more deeper at this meeting, and that will give you more information about that. So I will go ahead and start off with Fresno EOC, Nazarene Johnson. They are the prime community partner, media and communications community partner, event coordination, and the direct outreach partner. So let me send that over to you, Nazarene, and I will pull up your PowerPoint.
Wonderful. Good evening, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay? I can still see your faces. Okay, good. That was really inspiring, and I'm glad we got to cover 3 of the projects before talking about our piece of these projects. So like Courtney said, I'm Nazarene Johnson. I'm the Director of Marketing and Communication here at Fresno EOC. Go ahead and give us the next slide, Courtney. I wanted to provide first a brief overview about our agency, and then I have a slide where you'll meet some of our team, and then I'm going to go into our Prime project, and then the rest of the team will cover the other projects. So go ahead and go over the next slide. So Fresno Economic Opportunities Commission is a community action agency that was born of the Economic Opportunity Act and Civil Rights Act of 1964. And so that means we have more than 5 decades of serving our community through over 35 programs. Through these programs, we provide opportunities throughout Fresno County that help bridge the gap so that our community members can become self-sufficient. And next slide. You might be familiar with a few of our programs because we have a lot of them. Head Start, we have over 45 or 50 sites throughout Fresno County. We have 5 WIC offices here in Fresno. We have Street Saints, our local conservation corps, low income home energy assistance program. And right there smack in the middle is our Food Express bus, which has been providing meals for kids when school's out of session. Normally that's just summer and winter, but nowadays it also is feeding healthy meals during the pandemic. Go ahead and give me the next slide. So here is our team. Christine Morgan is the communications manager, and she's going to be lead on this project moving forward. And we also have Chris Estep, and he's our communications specialist, and he's going to take lead on the graphic and web design components of our projects. And new to our team, he just started on Monday, is Jose Moreno, and he is also a communications specialist, and he'll be taking lead on the video components. And then Gabrielle Rivas is our content and community engagement specialist, and she'll be handling a lot of the details and coordinations for these projects. Next slide, please. So these, some of you might recognize or be able to actually find yourself in that photo. It's from 2017. And so these projects all came out of the community engagement plan developed by the community. And like Courtney said, we'll be leading the prime media communications, direct outreach, and the event coordination pieces of this plan. Go ahead and turn on the next. So the Prime Partnership, you'll see a couple of examples of our work in this arena, but I consider it like the umbrella of the community engagement partnerships. It's like the connector between all of the moving pieces. So under Prime, we will be planning regular community engagement updates. We'll be coordinating the annual Transform Fresno Summits and coordinating other email and direct outreach items under the Prime Partnership. So on the screen, for those of you on the phone, we're showing a couple of pictures. One is a focus group of actually young people. We were wanting their opinions on some things. One is a large community event that brought together different folks for it was a few years ago for our 50th anniversary, and another shows our media, which you'll hear more about. So next I'm gonna give the slide, turn it over to Chris, who will cover the media and communications project. I think you should just be able to unmute yourself, Chris.
Okay. Thank you, Nazreen. Indeed, we are very excited to be working on this project, and I'm looking forward to moving forward. As the media and communications partner, we'll be working on TCC branding, website updates, as well as content creation for sharing through social media platforms, as well as traditional media outreach. Fresno ESC is experienced in video production. Jose Moreno, our new video production expert, has 14 years of news and television experience and is going to bring a great asset of experience to the production. So to allow us to create compelling video content that will suit the variety of needs of any platform. Overall, our role is to capture, share, and highlight the work from the TCC projects and how they've made and are continuing to make a positive impact in our communities. If you want to go to the next slide, I'll hand over to Gabrielle to discuss the direct outreach component.
Thank you, Chris. And yes, we're really excited to work on this with all of you. I'll be going over the direct outreach component and event coordination partnerships. And so as the direct outreach community partner.
Gabrielle, could you speak up just a bit?
Yes, sorry, is that better?
Yep.
Okay, I'll speak up a little bit more. As the direct outreach community partner, we will manage a volunteer database, a community calendar, surveys, and distribution of materials. We already work with our programs to develop materials like these in order to serve our community. And with that, we're really excited to work with all of our TCC project partners. So whether it's delivering online forums or physical flyers, we can adapt our work accordingly, especially with COVID-19. And so on this slide specifically, there's an outreach worker providing flyers into packaged meals for families to pick up. And so this is just one way we've been able to still push materials and continue outreach while maintaining a safe social distance. If you could go to the next slide. And now I'll be discussing event coordination. And so as your partner, our role is to coordinate 4 project milestone events over the course of the contract and 1 to 2 cultural or arts events per year. Fresno EOC already coordinates annual and project milestone events. And so on this slide, we have pictured our 2 events that we've hosted, one for staff, and then another was one for the community. One was a paint night at our LGBTQ Resource Center, and then the other was a Black History celebration. If you could go to the next slide. And so with COVID-19, agencies have planned events and activities. They've needed to pivot, including us as well. So for example, local census efforts and many services provide have moved to online and virtual platforms. And so as a team, we want you to know that we're taking the pandemic into account as we plan for future events and activities. And so on this slide, we have a few pictures of examples of that being done. And so those are 2 events that were done virtually. If you could go to the next slide. So we just want to say thank you all for letting us share more about us and then what these deliverables entail. And we're really excited to work with you all. We will be coordinating meetings with our project partners in the future. And in the meantime, feel free to reach out to us at tcc@fresnoeoc.org. And so thank you again, and thank you for your time.
Great, thank you so much for that. I appreciate that. Next, we're going to go to our leadership development partner, which is the Youth Leadership Institute. And sure, go ahead and take it.
Good evening, everyone. I want to introduce, Courtney, do we have the slideshow? Thank you. So I want to introduce our team. This is a partnership, the Youth Leadership Development Program. It will be a partnership between Youth Leadership Institute and Fresno EOC Street Saints. So I also want to introduce our team of Nicole, Brian, and Cato, and hand it off to Cato, who will be leading this, who will be jumping in.
Good evening, everybody. Courtney, if you could go to the next slide. Thank you. So like Cher mentioned, this is about to be a super sweet partnership between Street Saints and Fresno Boys and Men of Color. We are both organizations that have programming that works directly day to day with young people at Edison High School. So this program is seeking to reach young people who are interested in leadership, who are interested in what's going on around in their community, specifically in 93706. And BMOC currently functions as this really, really beautiful set of young people who are committed to serving and healing and advocating to make a healthy home for everyone around them in their community. So we're partnering with Street Saints. And then if Nicole or Brian wanted to give a quick little intro, I know we're, 7:13, about who Street Saints are.
Hello, good to be here. Thank you guys for the city for putting this collaboration together. It's been fun working with Youth Leadership Institute. We're having some great times about putting a great curriculum together for kids that will be able to go out and be ambassadors for the TCC program. And so we just really appreciate the partnership, the time to come together and really look at the impact we can make with TCC, not just for this leadership program, for them, again, becoming leaders in their community and understanding how to continue to push the envelope on TCC projects and everything that's happening in West Fresno. And going back to their parents and now training their parents and their younger siblings to really understand what real true impact West Fresno is getting after being neglected for a number of years. And so we're just excited to be a part of what's going on, and this new collaborative that we're looking to even go further in collaborating and doing things together.
So next slide. So speaking of collaboration, we wanted to provide an overview of our plan, what we're going to be doing. So a part of our plan is a recruiting cohort. We're going to recruit and train a cohort of 12 young people from Southwest Fresno, as Brian mentioned, to serve as ambassadors of Transform. We want to specifically recruit from 93706 or the Transform Fresno community area. As Brian mentioned, we're getting our cohort at Edison High School, and we're going to be starting with high school students. We're also going to be working with our young people. The young people, we're going to identify a small group of young people to work with to develop this curriculum, to develop a curriculum that's going to train them on how to do outreach, on how to facilitate workshops, and how to do social media, as well as to train them about the different TCC projects, how TCC came about, and engaging community partners to do that. So we do plan on reaching out to folks on this call, working on the project. And the idea here is to really train and empower our youth to serve as ambassadors for the TCC programs, but also to support us during these quarterly meetings and the annual summits, as well as to support the projects in the TCC area, including projects that are ongoing right now and projects that are about to launch. Next. Courtney, that was the previous slide. Can you go forward, please? So what does this look like? So as I just discussed, we're looking to build a cohort of 12 young people each year to recruit these young people through our programs that we're operating in the area, as well as to reach out to partners, folks on this call who have programs there in Southwest Fresno, and to recruit young people to be a part of this cohort. We really want to build their content knowledge, and we're really going to be working with them to build this curriculum, utilizing existing resources, leveraging relationships with the community and, for example, guest speakers to take them to projects to learn more about what's happening. We also, as discussed, we want to connect them to projects and connect them to projects that they're interested in and that they can envision, they can support and help build. So there's a project, for example, that we identified here as a garden project at Sunset Community Center, which is also where Fresno Street Saints. So we thought that would be a really good place to start in terms of just building their content knowledge about projects in TCC. We also want to train, I think a part of this is to engage the community and to engage other young people living here. So training our young people to do outreach, to invite them, to invite the community, to invite their peers to community meetings, and to engage them in the projects. And finally, we also recognize, I think as folks have been discussing or sharing during this meeting, that we're working with a community with high concentrations of poverty that's underserved. And so we also want to recognize to support young people stipends and also to incentivize with stipends. So we're looking to leverage that to recruit and to retain young people in this cohort. And so we're going to the next slide, and I'm going to pass it to Cato. Next slide. Yeah.
Thank you, Courtney, and sure. So yeah, I just wanted to give a little context on what it's looked like to be running programming with young people at the table during COVID-19 and the way where we've seen sheltering in place kind of having a huge effect, I'm sure, across all of the work that we do. And at our table, and we've shared a lot of similar experiences with our Street Saints folks as well, that we've really leaned into this idea of sheltering in strength. What can we do to be empowering our networks, even from home, and our young people to continue to step into their power, to address issues with internet connectivity, and really just like the technological accessibility of this moment. So we are prepared and ready and willing to leverage funds that we need to, and even separate grants outside of those from TCC to make sure that we are able to meaningfully engage the youth in this process and that people aren't left behind just because this is a very taxing and stressful moment. So we've really been leaning into the holistic development of the young people as well. So there's the work component that Sher did a great job, I think, of sharing about, but also the personal development of it all too, and the care and the well-being that we hope to be building up their content knowledge on as well in terms of self-care in these activist spaces, and being able to really step into their power to tell their stories as well. So that's what it's looked like to shelter in strength, and that's kind of the energy we hope to bring into this first cohort, knowing that school in the fall is going to look different for a lot of our youth. Pass it over to Nicole for the next slide.
Good evening, everyone. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm Nicole. So along with Boys and Men of Color, Street Saints have recruited 4 young people to start to develop this curriculum and our program. Our intent is to meet at Edison High School because our students will be, our young people will be students from Edison. We intend to launch with an orientation at the beginning of the school year 2020-2021. That's it. Thank you.
And we'll go back to Kate.
Oh, thanks, Sher. And then last but definitely not least, we wanted to just give you a really happy kind of note to end on. Gabriel's smile brings a smile to my face. But the start of Transform Fresno Leaders, like Nicole just mentioned, is with these young people who are already a bit engaged, who are already ready and excited to talk about what's going down, the issues that they see that they face day to day in the 93706, and the really like creative approaches that projects like the TCC are bringing to make some moves and things that the community members have been asking for themselves and advocating for themselves for a really long time. So this is Gabriel. He's 16. He's a football player. He also finds himself in a position of being a caretaker with other family members at home. And he's a super passionate guy who's really excited to get started. So that's just a little sneak peek into some of the leaders that we're recruiting right now. And that's all we got. Thank you, guys.
Great presentation. Thank you very much. Very encouraged by both the EOC and the YLI presentations. And now we're going to turn it over to Destiny Thomas for our last presentation, which will address a couple of different areas. So Destiny, Dr. Thomas.
Thank you. We do not have slides tonight. In the interest of time, though, we pre-recorded the presentation that we've been kind of giving for the last 2 months regarding our scope of work, and it can be found on our website at thethrivensgroup.com, or I believe it might also be on the Transform Fresno website. If it's not, we can get it up there. And we also send out a monthly newsletter to all of the project partners and residents who have engaged this project at any point. That newsletter usually goes out around the first of the month, and that video that goes into the finer details about our scope can be found there. Tonight, I wanted to provide just a quick update about the work that we've been doing since joining this effort in April. We've managed to get a lot done. So for those of you who are just now being introduced to the Thrive-Ins group, we are the anti-displacement partner on the project. And so we're responsible for taking various steps to work toward some policy development around anti-displacement in the project area, as well as in the broader sense of the Fresno region. And we'll be doing that through both research and through strategy development, as well as on the ground community engagement. Our community engagement, we hope to anchor to the efforts that we've learned about tonight. We are heavily invested in scaling civic engagement. So it's a little bit different because the engagement that we are doing, we're hoping to scale community level capacity to carry the work forward, both through policy advocacy, as well as through the work itself. So we began what we call executive interviews at the top of this month, or at the end of May, actually. And the executive interviews are our effort to survey existing and past city staff and consultants who have at any point done work that has influenced outcomes that may or may not have impacted or created displacement impacts in the Fresno area. So we set a goal to interview a specific number of people, and then we did a little bit of outreach to the existing project partners to make sure we had a comprehensive list of people to interview. We haven't met that goal, but we are 75% of the way done with those interviews. So once we have those interviews complete, we will go back out for a second round of interviews, but those interviews will be called stakeholder interviews. And the purpose of those interviews will be actually to validate and supplement the data and the stories that come out of the executive interview phase. And so anecdotally, or put more plainly, oftentimes that the experience that city staff, which I used to be a government employee myself, oftentimes the experience that decision makers have with the policies that they create and implement is much different than the lived experience of the people who encounter those policies. And so our first phase is to do an assessment of what existing and former staff know about the policies that have led to the current displacement climate. And then our stakeholder interviews help us to understand the actual on the ground perception of those decisions. And we use both of those phases of interviews to create a preliminary report that helps us to further define additional research that we want to do around policy gaps or displacement risks or even equity gaps. And so as we move along through these processes, we believe in full transparency. So we'll be making all of those details known to you all as well as to the general public through our website and in partnership with Transform Fresno. What we've done is created our own dashboard on our website that Fresno residents can access at any point to have real-time status update on the work that we're doing to develop policy for anti-displacement work, as well as to actually put some interventions in the ground right now. So you can always stay up to date by either subscribing to that newsletter, by logging onto the website. We also are testing out various platforms, but we're going to start sending multilingual text messages out to folks that have engaged the project before. And then once a month, we deploy our street team, which we call the Dignity Team, within the Fresno project area to communicate these updates in person. So you'll start to hear a lot more from us regarding those efforts in the next 2 weeks. We also conducted and completed what we call a social climate analysis this month. Our social climate analysis is an opportunity for our project staff to take off our technical hats and observe the built environment or the community in a way that is not skewed by our personal or contractual desired outcomes. So it's an assessment of sociological issues. An example I always use is, sometimes if we have, say, an engineer or an urban planner come out to the social climate analysis with us, they are most likely to look at the environment and say, well, there's a stop sign here, so clearly this intersection is safe, right? But our social climate analysis encourages everyone involved in the decision-making process of our portion of the project to remove that technical lens and look at whether or not people are honoring the stop sign, whether that stop sign is actually creating a safety issue, who's in the space, how they're using the space. Are there underground economies that we need to be considering in our proposals and in our infrastructure design? Are there communities or groups of people that have historically been erased or marginalized through past policy processes? So we go through this really in-depth analysis through the social climate analysis to identify where those equity gaps exist. And then we actually do a second phase of social climate analysis where we bring direct service providers like housing specialists, educators, mental health specialists out to add another layer of recommendations to the recommendations that we were planning to put forth. So I say all that to say we completed our social climate analysis this month, and we are done with the first draft of that report. We plan on sharing that with Courtney this week. And then once we get the green light, we will make that public facing as well. And we're hoping that you will give us feedback about that analysis and help to steer us in the right direction for further research and engagement down the line. Another thing that we're launching actually this month is our oral history project. And so in everything that we do, which you'll see in our the video if you get a chance to look at it, another thing we do is we always strive to leave something behind. We don't believe in coming to the community to extract. And so one of the ways we're doing that in Fresno is through this oral history project. And this is an opportunity for us to capture the legacies of the families that live in the project area, as well as the legacies of families that have unfortunately been displaced. We find that this serves two purposes. One, it's actual data collection, but two, if we are able to package this into collateral that is very appealing and in a multimedia, multilingual format, this is something that could go into official archives so that as Fresno residents begin to advocate, we've got to go in a second, so I'll wrap up, but as Fresno residents begin to advocate for changes in the future, they'll have these archival documents and documentaries to as a basis for that advocacy. And I know we are at time, so the last thing I want to leave you with is we are looking to hire 10 project area residents, so 10 residents from the project area for our street team. And we're ready to get going with our street team institute and get the training off the ground. So we have the interest form on our website. Please download it, please share it, and we'll also make sure that it goes out in the newsletter. I know a lot of folks prefer hard copies, so we're working on a way to get that to you as well. Thank you for having us, and please check for the more long version.
Great, thank you, Dr. Thomas. Now we've come to the end of our time, but I do want to take just a couple of minutes here to receive any questions that you might have for any of our transformative plan implementers, our community engagement plan partners, Fresno EOC and YLI, Youth Leadership Institute, and also our displacement avoidance plan consultant, Dr. Destiny Thomas. Any questions? Well, then let me just.
You're on mute.
Okay. Any questions? Or any public comments as we come to a close here tonight?
I just would like to offer my services of anything that I can do to help BMOC, YLI, and Street Saints in their community outreach. I am a community organizer by trade, ran a lot of civic engagement programs, have worked with SURE before. And if there's anything that I can do, any assistance, just reach out to me and I'll make that happen.
Beautiful. Thank you for that generous offer, Kimberly. Anyone else as we get ready to wrap up? I apologize for the noise in the background. I am eating dinner at my grandkids' house, and thought I could sort of be a little more underground in this meeting, but with Councilmember Arias not able to be with us, here we are. So welcome to my world, and it is just so good to be with you in your worlds. But I think that just listening to the comments, isn't there a deep sense that we are making progress? And we're excited about the project that was presented. We're also excited about these transformative plans. So with that, I'm just going to close it. Any other comments, Courtney, that you would have as we get ready to wrap up?
No, I just appreciate everybody's involvement and continued support. Thank you.
We've had over 50 participants tonight. It's very encouraging, and thank you all presenters for your great investment of time this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.